The world you see is not a solid wall, it is a mirror, and it is currently reflecting a lie you have agreed to believe. You have been taught to look at the numbers on a screen, the digits that define your current liquid wealth, as a final verdict on your worth. You have been trained to view money as a scarce resource, a wild animal that must be hunted, trapped, and tamed through the sweat of your brow and the exhaustion of your spirit. But money is not a thing, it is a shadow. It is the trailing physical evidence of a state of consciousness. To chase money is to chase a shadow across a wall. You will run until you collapse, and the shadow will always remain just beyond your fingertips. The master knows a secret that the world is desperate to keep hidden. You do not earn wealth, you occupy it. Imagine, for a moment, that the entire financial structure of the world, the massive capital, the towering banks, the flowing rivers of global currency, is a vast, silent territory. This territory is not locked behind gates of merit or luck. It is a psychological landscape. Scarcity is not a financial condition. It is a costume you are wearing. It is an identity you have inhabited so deeply that you have forgotten you can take it off. Every time you check your balance with a tightening in your chest, every time you hesitate before a purchase, you are affirming a state of not having. You are telling the universe that you are a visitor in the land of wealth, a beggar looking through the glass. We are here to dismantle that identity. We are here to dissolve the very concept of limit. What if the money you desire is not out there at all? What if your bank account is not a container to be filled, but a landscape you already own, currently obscured by a fog of your own making? The transition from lack to absolute solvency requires a violent psychological departure from the collective myth of hard work. You must realize that your consciousness is the only reality, the only substance. The market does not dictate your wealth. Your boss does not dictate your wealth. Your history does not dictate your wealth. Only the I am within you determines the flow of liquid wealth into your experience. You must stop trying to change the reflection in the mirror and change the face of the one who looks into it. You must collapse the distance between the desire and the possession. There is no becoming wealthy. There is only the radical, immediate assumption of being the one who commands massive capital. The fog is lifting. The territory is yours. You are not earning your way into the kingdom. You are realizing you were always the architect of the treasury. Forget the noise of the world. Close your eyes and feel the specific, heavy silence of absolute financial power. This is not the loud, frantic energy of someone trying to get rich. This is the cool, still air of someone who is already wealthy. Feel the physical weight of your own security. It lives in the small of your back, a steadiness that replaces the frantic vibration of survival. There is a particular coolness to a high-balanced digital interface when you log in. Not a rush of adrenaline, but a calm, clinical recognition of your own reflection. The numbers are high, steady, and inevitable. They do not fluctuate with your mood because they are anchored in your conviction. Think of the silence of a life that is entirely debt-free. It is a sensory experience. It is the absence of a ghost that has been following you for years. When you walk through the world, the pavement feels different under your feet. You are no longer navigating a minefield of expenses. You are walking across your own estate. The air you breathe is crisp, unburdened by the stale oxygen of anxiety. When you enter a room, you do not look for the exits or the price tags. You occupy the center of the space because you own the ground you stand on. This is the sensory reality of massive capital. It is the ability to move through the world without friction. Visualize the liquid wealth as a literal substance, a golden viscous flow that moves toward you with the inevitability of the tide. It doesn't splash, it rises. It fills every crack, every corner of your life, until there is no room for the thought of how. Feel the texture of your life as it changes. The fabrics you wear are heavier, more intentional. The food you eat tastes of substance, not just sustenance. You are no longer spending, you are circulating. When you release money, you feel it leaving your hand with the same confidence that you feel when you exhale, knowing that the next breath is already entering your lungs. There is no panic in the exhale. There is only the rhythm of the infinite. Your financial power is a physical fact, as real as the gravity that holds you to the earth. It is the coolness of the screen, the heaviness of the security, and the silence of the debt-free mind. This is your natural climate. You are not visiting this state, you have moved your belongings here. You are home. Listen to the conversation happening inside your mind right now. For most, this inner monologue is a relentless court case, a series of justifications, fears, and can I afford it inquiries. But the one who commands markets does not ask for permission. The internal dialogue of the wealthy is not a debate. It is a command. It is a steady, unwavering broadcast of "it is mine." The language of scarcity is complex, full of if, when, and hopefully. The language of financial power is simple. It is the inner speech of a ruler who does not need to shout to be obeyed. When you see an opportunity, a luxury, or a massive investment, the old man within you might whisper, "That's too much." You must silence him with the cool, indifferent logic of the new man. It is already accounted for. Your inner speech must become the ledger of your new reality. You do not try to believe you are wealthy. You speak to yourself as one who has forgotten what it was like to be anything else. Your monologue is the sound of absolute solvency. It is the internal click of a key turning in a lock. You replace the question, "How will this happen?" with the statement, "It is done." This is not an affirmation you repeat to convince yourself. It is the natural way you think from your new elevated platform. Imagine the inner dialogue of someone who owns the market. They don't check the news to see what happened. They know that their state of consciousness is what is happening. They speak of millions as others speak of pennies, with a casual, detached familiarity. This is your task, to make the thought of massive capital feel as mundane and natural as the thought of your own name. When the world presents a bill, your inner voice says, "Paid." When the world presents a lack, your inner voice says, "Full." You are the high priest of your own economy. Every word you speak within yourself is a law. If you tell yourself you are a master of wealth, the world has no choice but to organize itself to prove you right. Your internal speech is the blueprint that the external world must follow. Stop talking like a tenant and start thinking like the landlord of your life. The market is not your master. Your inner word is the only market that matters. The world believes that capital flows toward those who chase it with the most aggression, but the truth is far more clinical. Capital is attracted to a specific density of consciousness. To dominate a market is not to outmaneuver your rivals in the physical world. It is to become a psychological gravity well so powerful that wealth has no choice but to fall into your orbit. You must understand that massive capital is not sentient. It is a liquid energy that seeks the path of least resistance and the highest level of certainty. When you occupy the state of absolute financial power, you are no longer a hunter. You are the destination. Imagine your consciousness as a massive, immovable architectural structure. Most people have an internal landscape made of shifting sand. Their confidence rises and falls with the morning's stock reports or the month's overhead. But you are constructing a temple of market dominance. This state is characterized by an utter lack of need. In the mechanics of wealth, need is a repellent. To need money is to broadcast its absence. To command it is to realize that the market is simply an extension of your own nervous system. You do not react to the market. The market adjusts to the pressure of your assumption. What if you stopped viewing yourself as a participant in the economy and started viewing yourself as the center of it? Every deal you close, every investment that matures, and every stream of revenue that opens is simply the physical world catching up to the fact that you have already claimed ownership. This is the magnetism of the master. A cold, unwavering focus that assumes the result before the first move is ever made. You do not hope for a favorable outcome. You provide the vacuum that the outcome must fill. When you walk into a negotiation, the win is already a historical fact in your mind. The others in the room are merely actors playing out a script you have already written in the silence of your own conviction. Most people build their lives around their expenses, fitting their dreams into the narrow hallways of their current income. We are here to reverse that architecture. Absolute solvency is not merely having enough to cover your costs. It is the psychological state where the very concept of cost has been deleted. You are building a mental skyscraper where the foundation is not a job or a business, but the I am of infinite supply. In this section, we dismantle the ceiling of your financial potential. Think of your current financial limit as a glass dome. You can see the sky through it, but you cannot reach it. That dome is made of your past experiences, your family's history with money, and your fear of the unknown. To move into absolute solvency, you must shatter the glass. You must stop thinking in terms of increments, a 10% raise, a 20% growth, and start thinking in terms of total structural transformation. You are not renovating your old life. You are bulldozing it to build a fortress of liquid wealth. In this state, you view your capital not as a savings account to be protected, but as an empire to be expanded. Your relationship with money becomes one of cold, objective command. You look at $1 million not as a mountain to be climbed, but as a single brick in the massive wall of your financial freedom. This perspective shift is the hallmark of the wealthy. They do not look up at wealth, they look down from it. Every morning, you must mentally walk through the halls of your absolute solvency. Feel the height of the ceilings, the solidity of the walls, and the profound safety of your position. You are not getting rich. You are the one for whom wealth is the only logical environment. The final stage of this phase is the transition from believing to knowing. In the laboratory of your mind, you are performing an alchemical feat, turning the lead of financial anxiety into the gold of market dominance. This requires a radical indifference to current facts. If your bank statement currently shows a deficit, you must look at it with the same detached interest you would give a weather report for a city you don't live in. It is a fact of the past, a fading echo of an old state of consciousness. Your present is the massive capital you are currently feeling into reality. Financial command is the ability to maintain your inner vision of wealth even when the outer world screams of lack. It is a form of divine arrogance. You must be so invested in your internal state of absolute solvency that the external world has no choice but to surrender and mold itself to your will. This is where the instant abundance occurs, not necessarily as a bag of gold falling from the sky, but as a sudden, sharp shift in the world's behavior toward you. Opportunities appear from nowhere. Debts are forgiven or forgotten. Ideas with the power to generate millions occur to you in a flash of clarity. This is the alchemy of the mind. You are the catalyst. By holding the frequency of liquid wealth with unwavering intensity, you force the atoms of your financial reality to rearrange. You are no longer praying for a change in circumstances. You are the change. You command the elements of your life with the authority of one who knows that his word is the only law. The transition is complete. You have moved from the person who wants wealth to the person who is wealth. In the realm of the common man, price is a barrier, a barbed wire fence that dictates where he can go and what he can touch. But in the consciousness of the master, the concept of price is dissolved, replaced entirely by the lens of value. To the one who commands massive capital, a price tag is not a demand for payment. It is merely a metric of energy. When you operate from the state of absolute solvency, you stop looking at what a thing costs and start looking at what it is. You realize that the numbers attached to goods, services, and assets are arbitrary markers in a game you have already won. Think of a master art collector. When he stands before a canvas, he does not see $1 million debt. He sees a permanent expansion of his world. He moves through the marketplace with a predatory grace, not because he is greedy, but because he knows that everything he desires is already, by right of consciousness, his. You must train your eyes to see past the numerical gatekeepers. When you encounter a high-ticket item, your nervous system must remain as cool as a deep-water lake. The old price shock is a symptom of a poverty-stricken identity, a ghost of the man who believed his resources were finite. You must replace that shock with the silent internal nod of the owner. What if every expense was viewed as an investment in your own expansion? When you release liquid wealth into the market, you are not losing it, you are planting it in the soil of your own kingdom. The wealthy do not pay for things, they acquire them. The difference is psychological. To pay is to lose, to acquire is to grow. Start looking at the finest things the world has to offer. the prime real estate, the controlling interests in industry, the peak experiences of human life. And instead of asking, what does it cost? Ask, how does this serve the landscape of my power? When you shift from price consciousness to value dominance, the market senses your shift. It stops presenting you with bargains and starts presenting you with empires. Wealth is not a pool of stagnant water. It is a high-velocity river. The greatest mistake the uninitiated make is attempting to dam the river out of fear. They hoard, they clench, and they restrict, thinking that by holding on to their capital, they are securing it. In reality, they are suffocating it. Financial power belongs to the one who understands the physics of flow. Liquid wealth must move to stay alive. The master keeps his capital in a state of constant rhythmic motion, knowing that the faster it flows out in the service of his vision, the more violently it must rush back in to fill the vacuum. Imagine your financial life as a high-performance engine. The capital is the lubricant and the fuel. If it sits still, the engine seizes. But when it moves at high velocity, it generates a heat and a power that can move mountains. You must cultivate a psychological looseness with money. This is not recklessness, it is a calculated, divine indifference. You are the conductor of a great symphony of currency. You direct the flow of massive capital with a flick of your wrist, sending it where it will do the most work, trusting the law of circulation as implicitly as you trust the sun to rise. What if you became the most efficient spender in the world? Not on trifles, but on the expansion of your state. The more comfortably you can move large sums of money, the more the universe trusts you with even larger sums. The bottleneck is always in the mind. If you feel a pinch when moving $10,000, you have set a ceiling at $10,000. But if you move $1 million with the same nonchalance as a grocery bill, the $1 million becomes your new floor. You must widen the pipes of your consciousness. Let the wealth roar through you. The faster it moves, the more your market dominance solidifies. You are the turbine through which the world's wealth is converted into your personal power. There is a specific frequency to the person who owes no one and to whom the world is in debt. This is the state of the sovereign creditor. It is a posture of the soul. Most people walk through the world as debtors, not just financially, but psychologically. They are looking for approval, for credit, for acknowledgement. They are constantly trying to balance a cosmic ledger they didn't even write. But the master realizes that he is the only source. He is the creditor to his own reality. He does not look to the world to give him anything. He commands the world to reflect what he has already claimed. The silence of a sovereign life is profound. It is the end of the hustle. When you are no longer trying to get, you can finally command. Your presence in the market becomes heavy, dignified, and authoritative. You do not explain, you do not complain, and you do not justify your wealth. You simply occupy it. This sovereignty is the ultimate protection against market volatility. While others are panicked by the debts of the world, you are seated in the fortress of your own absolute solvency. You are the one who provides the value, the one who sets the terms, and the one who determines the rate of exchange. In this state, your inner speech is stripped of all pleading. You no longer ask the universe for wealth. You recognize that the universe is your own treasury, and you are simply making a withdrawal. The feeling of being a creditor is the feeling of being owed by life itself. Not out of a sense of victimhood, but out of a sense of law. If you have occupied the state of wealth, the world owes you the physical manifestation of that wealth. It is a debt that the 3D world must pay, with interest. Walk today with the spine of a man who owns the bank, who has cleared every debt, and who looks at the world not as a master to be served, but as a territory to be managed. The world of commerce is obsessed with the process. It demands a linear progression, the slow climb, the ladder, the decade of grinding before the harvest. But in the psychology of the master, time is a flexible illusion. To achieve financial autonomy, you must learn to execute the quantum leap. This is the art of bypassing the how and collapsing the distance between your current position and the seat of market dominance. You do not travel toward wealth, you inhabit it here and now, forcing the physical world to bridge the gap through a series of lucky coincidences and sudden openings. The quantum leap requires a radical refusal to acknowledge the steps the world says are necessary. When you focus on the steps, you are affirming the distance. When you focus on the end, the feeling of absolute solvency, you are deleting the distance. You must become psychologically unreasonable. If the market says it takes 5 years to build a fortune, you must inwardly live in the reality that it is already done. This creates a tension in the fabric of your reality that can only be resolved by the rapid manifestation of liquid wealth. You are not waiting for the money to arrive so you can feel autonomous. You are feeling autonomous so the money has no choice but to arrive. There is a point where wealth stops being additive and becomes geometric. This is the transition from earning to multiplying. Most minds are trapped in the prison of addition. If I work twice as hard, I will have twice as much. The master operates in the realm of squares and cubes. Massive capital has its own intelligence. Once it reaches a certain density within your consciousness, it begins to breed. It expands not through your labor, but through your permission. You must expand your mental capacity to hold numbers that would frighten a lesser man. Imagine your wealth as a fractal, expanding outward in every direction with a mathematical precision that requires none of your physical effort. Your task is not to manage the growth, but to remain the stable center around which the growth occurs. You must become comfortable with the unearned nature of high-level wealth. The world will try to guilt you back into the additive model, telling you that such growth is impossible or unfair. You must remain cold to these suggestions. You are moving into the geometry of the infinite. Your bank account is no longer a reflection of your work. It is a reflection of your ability to conceive of scale without flinching. In the final movement of this phase, we address the ultimate fear, the fear of loss. The uninitiated live in a state of fragile wealth, constantly looking over their shoulder at the economist or the competition. But true financial freedom is found in the realization that your treasury is not out there in a vault. It is the I am within you. You are the bank. If the entire global financial system were to vanish tomorrow, the man who knows his consciousness is the only substance would rebuild his empire in weeks, because he still possesses the mold from which all wealth is cast. This is the state of absolute security. It is the realization that you are the source of the shadow. When you know that the money in your accounts is simply the physical condensation of your inner state, you stop worrying about losing it. You cannot lose your own shadow. You walk with a terrifying level of confidence because you are no longer dependent on the world's permission to be wealthy. You have moved your assets into a jurisdiction that no regulator can touch and no market crash can devalue. You are the sovereign creditor, the quantum architect, and the living embodiment of massive capital. The world is simply your teller window. There is a silence that exists at the highest altitudes of financial power, a silence that the world mistakes for peace, but is actually the predatory stillness of a hawk on the wing. This is the state of the top 0.1%. It is a psychological position where the fight has been entirely removed, leaving only the execution. At this level, you no longer struggle against competitors. You simply outexist them. You move with a ruthless calm, knowing that your internal conviction of market dominance acts as a silent command to the atoms of the economy. This predatory peace is born from the absolute death of anxiety. In the lower tiers of wealth, there is a frantic need to protect, to guard, and to watch the gates. In the 0.1%, you realize that you are the gate. You do not worry about losing your position, because your position is not based on a job title or a stock price. It is based on the undeniable fact of your consciousness. You view the fluctuations of the world as a predator views the movement of tall grass, not as a threat, but as information. You have the luxury of patience. You can wait decades for a move because you already live in the end result. This is the legacy state, where your very presence in a market changes its chemistry. To command massive capital at an institutional level, you must stop viewing money as a personal possession and start viewing it as a fluid, global utility that you have the sole right to direct. Personal wealth is a pond. Institutional capital is an ocean. The master of this state understands that his I am is the conduit for flows of wealth that exceed the imagination of the common man. You are no longer thinking about your money. You are thinking about the movement of the world's resources through the lens of your vision. The architecture of this state is one of total fluidity. You do not hold wealth, you channel it. You understand that the more capital you can move through your consciousness without a sense of clutching, the more the universe will use you as its primary clearinghouse. This requires a nervous system that can handle the transit of hundreds of millions without a flicker of a pulse. You become a financial superconductor, zero resistance to the flow of liquid wealth. Your internal speech shifts from I have to I direct. You are the CEO of a reality where capital is the servant of your word. We conclude this phase by anchoring you in the law of inevitability. When you stand on the shore and watch the horizon, you do not wonder if the sun will rise. You know it is a mathematical certainty. Your financial freedom must reach this same level of boring, predictable fact. You have moved beyond the miracle phase. You are now in the mechanical phase. Because you have occupied the state of absolute solvency with such persistence, the physical manifestation is no longer an if, but a when. The horizon of your wealth is always moving toward you. You do not need to run toward it. Every action you take in the 3D world is now a victory lap, a simple physical confirmation of a psychological fact that was established weeks, months, or years ago. You move through your business dealings with the relaxed posture of a man watching a movie he has already seen 10 times. You know the ending. You know the hero wins. You know the treasury is full. This is the ultimate instant abundance. The moment when the waiting disappears because the having is so real that the clock becomes irrelevant. In the lower realms of the economy, every movement is met with resistance. There are fees, delays, negotiations, and the constant grinding friction of trying. But as you ascend into the state of market dominance, you enter the vacuum of zero resistance. This is the decimation of financial friction. It is the psychological state where the world stops saying no or wait and begins to say immediately. You move through global markets, not as a petitioner, but as a hot blade through wax. Friction is a product of doubt. When you harbor the slightest internal suspicion that you do not belong in the room of massive capital, the world creates red tape to reflect that hesitation. To decimate friction, you must achieve a state of social and financial entitlement, not the egoic kind, but the spiritual kind. You must feel that it is as natural for you to command a billion-dollar merger as it is for you to draw breath. When your inner speech is devoid of friction, your outer life becomes a frictionless slide into absolute solvency. Opportunities don't just come to you, they accelerate toward you because there is no psychological drag holding them back. The master does not see his bank and their bank. He sees a single global pool of liquidity that responds to the pressure of his intent. Command of global liquidity is the realization that money is a singular planetary organism. Like the water cycle of the earth, it is always moving, and it is always available to those who understand its currents. You stop thinking in terms of earning a salary and start thinking in terms of redirecting the flow. You are a hydrologist of wealth. You look at the vast oceans of capital moving through London, New York, Hong Kong, and Zurich, and you realize that your consciousness is the pump. By assuming the state of the one who provides immense value to the world, you create a low-pressure zone in your own life that the world's liquidity must rush to fill. You do not need to know the specific plumbing, the how of the wire transfer, or the who of the investor. You only need to maintain the pressure of your assumption. You are the sovereign commander of the flow, and the global markets are your personal irrigation system. There is a secret known to the masters of the Neville Goddard school. Capital is not a cold, dead thing. It has a ghost, a psychological imprint that responds to the quality of the mind that holds it. Most people treat money with fear, which makes the money flighty and prone to disappearing. You must treat massive capital with the calm, authoritative affection of a master for a loyal hound. When you treat wealth as a natural extension of your being, it becomes sticky. It stays, it grows, it follows you. This is the ghost in the machine. Your financial systems, your businesses, and your investments are not just spreadsheets, they are manifestations of your mental atmosphere. If your atmosphere is one of absolute solvency, the ghost of your capital will work for you even while you sleep, organizing deals and attracting partners that you haven't even met yet. You are the ghost in the machine of your own economy. You are the animating spirit that gives the numbers their power. Without your consciousness, the money is just paper and pixels. With your consciousness, it is a living force of market dominance. We have reached the point of no return. To step into the final tier of this cinematic realization, you must undergo a total transfiguration. You are not a man who became rich. That story implies a journey from not having to having. And as long as you cherish that story, you leave the door open for a return to the not having. No, you must perform a surgical extraction of the striving self, the identity that believes it is becoming something. You must realize that the version of you that lacked was an illusion, a temporary amnesia that has now been cured. The transfigured identity does not try to manifest. It is the manifestation. You look at your empire, your massive capital, your liquid wealth, your market dominance, and you do not feel surprised. You feel a deep, quiet recognition. It is the same feeling you have when you wake up in your own bed. You don't celebrate the fact that the bed is still there. You simply occupy it. This is the end of gratitude as a tool of pleading and the beginning of gratitude as a state of being. You are the one for whom the gold exists. You are the consciousness that gives the currency its value. The surgery is complete. The striver is dead. The sovereign remains. The circle is now closed. You have moved from the dissolution of scarcity to the mastery of global liquidity, and now you stand at the threshold of the eternal return. In this final state, you realize that abundance is not a destination you reached, but a frequency you have finally tuned into. Like a radio that has found its station, the music of absolute solvency never stops playing. It is a perpetual motion machine of capital, fueled by the unwavering I am that sits at the center of your being. You are now a financial immortal. Even if you were to give it all away today, it would rush back to you tomorrow with a frantic intensity, because you have become the mold. You have mastered the psychological mechanics of money to such a degree that the physical world is merely your shadow. You move through the markets with a smile that the world cannot understand, a smile born of the knowledge that the game was won before it even began. Your bank account is no longer a number, it is a landscape. Your capital is no longer a resource, it is your breath. You are the architect, the treasury, and the king. The cinematic series of your life has moved from the struggle of the opening act to the glory of the finale, and the finale never ends.